connecting people with policy, y'all. Before we begin today's video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notifications so you're notified whenever I post a new video. And make sure you follow me on my social media. We are trying to reach 5K subscribers and followers on Instagram and on YouTube. Y'all, we got this. Let's get it by November 12th. My birthday is November 12th. So if y'all can get me 5K by November 12th, then I will love you forever. Point blank, period. So today's video, someone actually commented. They were saying that I should watch this. It is long. It's like 42 minutes. So I kind of like skipped around and saw like the most replayed moments and stuff. So we're going to start like in the middle of it. And it is Thomas Sowell's on the social justice fallacies, uncommon knowledge. He did an interview. Thomas Sowell, I really have high immense of respect for him. I feel like he's like one of those individuals, like regardless if you agree with him or not, you can't dislike him. Like if you dislike him, you're probably like a hater, not even gonna lie. Like he's very, very highly respected, and the way his mannerism and the way that he explains his points, explains his like thought process and his like beliefs, like you have no like, you can't help but to respect him for that. So I really actually I highly respect him. I'm actually doing more and more research about him. I know he's like an icon when it comes to just the scope of just like politics, policy, social justice, how we view and see things and so forth like that. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and start this interview and we're going to see what's tea. All right, let's get it.
All right. From the progressive position a century ago to the progressive position today, racial assertions have ranged from the genetic determinism that we just discussed, which proclaimed that race is everything as an explanation of group differences, to the opposite view that racism is the primary explanation of group differences.
Yes.
How did this happen?
Oh, it happened because a lot of people arrived at the same conclusion, and they had high IQs and PhDs, and that was the end of the story as far as many people were concerned.
All right.
I mean, a high IQ and low information is a very dangerous combination.
Oh, that's a gem. A high IQ and low information is a dangerous combination. Okay.
Sorry, but you once told me, I'm talking to a Harvard man, of course, I'm very conscious of this, and you once told me, Peter, the main advantage of earning a Harvard degree is that you never again in all your life have to be intimidated by anyone who has a Harvard degree. All right. Listen, Tom, as I read this book, for the most part, it's objective, it's objective throughout, it's calm, it's analytical. But when you take on this modern progressive position that racism accounts for anything, there are passages in which you're angry. I felt that there are passages in which there's emotion that is very close to this. So let me just read a little bit to you. Median black family income has been lower than median white family income for generations. But the median per capita income of Asian groups is more than $15,000 a year higher than the median per capita income of white Americans. Is this the white supremacy we're so often warned about? For more than a quarter of a century, in no year has the annual poverty rate of black married couple families been as high as 10%. And in no year has the poverty rate of Americans as a whole been as low as 10%. If black poverty is caused by systemic racism, do racists make an exception for blacks who are married?
He has a point. Sorry, like I'm just soaking that in because he has a point. Let me go ahead and play it, y'all. Let me stop.
I guess you're allowed to be angry.
And he's thinking back. He's like,
well,
it's like, oh, you have a point there.
yes.
So, do you have the feeling when you're addressing this notion that racism accounts for everything, do you have the feeling that that the arguments are subtle, it's persuasive, you can forgive someone for buying that argument? Or do you have the feeling that it's willful? That the case is so clearly mistaken that there's a willfulness about it?
No, I don't. I think that people don't look for certain evidence, and therefore they don't find it. And so, on the basis of what they know at a given time, this may be very plausible. The problem is that what you really need are other people with different orientation who are skeptical and who will then look for things and find things that are very different from that. One of the things that I found interesting was the fact that there are various counties in the United States which are among the poorest counties in the country, and 6 of those counties have a population that ranges from 90% white to 100% white.
Appalachian counties.
Yes.
Kentucky,
Yes.
Kentucky
Yes.
and Ohio, as I recall.
Yeah, but mainly it's the hillbilly communities.
Right.
And of course, there's that great book that was written, The Hillbilly Elegy. It was on the bestseller list for more than a year consecutively.
J.D. Vance, now Senator Vance.
Yes, and these are people who have faced zero racism.
They are white.
And they're white and zero racism. And also they're back in the 30s when they did IQ studies, their IQs were not only at the same level as those of blacks, they had the same pattern, namely that the young people, whether they were black or hillbilly, would have an IQ very close to the national average at age 6. But by the time they were teenagers, it just kept going down and down and down, because it's relative to the other people of that age group, and they simply were falling behind. So it was clearly not biological; it was social. But despite that,
he said something again. He said it was clearly not biological; it was social. Goodness, this man got me thinking.
These hillbilly counties had incomes that were not only lower than the national average, they were lower than the average of black incomes for a period of half a century. It may have been longer than that because I only went through half a century. But in every study that was done over that half century, they scored lower, their family incomes were lower than the family incomes of blacks. So obviously there must be other things that cause people to be poor other than racism.
All right.
Wow.
People in low-income American hillbilly counties already face zero racism because they're virtually all white.
Yes.
Yet they have lower incomes than blacks, just as you were saying. In other words, some behavior patterns seem to pay off. Now, this book is dedicated to fallacies, to showing error.
I need to pick up this book. I haven't read this book, but this is really like opening up like different ways of me viewing things and my thought process and stuff like that. Good grief.
Errors in premises and errors in analysis. It's not dedicated to an alternative explanation. Nevertheless, you've got this argument lurking in here that it's the way people live, it's the way cultural patterns. So what are the patterns that pay off?
Well, oh my heavens, that's a much larger book than this.
Well, you've got time on your hands.
In terms of public policy, what does not pay off is having charismatic leaders depending upon government to do things. Because if you look what has happened to blacks before and after.
It's crazy he says this, because that's been an ongoing conversation as well about how much the government overextends its arm to help folks. Specifically, whenever there was a conversation, I forgot the Republican's name, but was it Tim Scott who brought it up? It was a presidential candidate on the Republican side who brought it up, how they doing more harm than good within the black communities when they provide like excessive resources like welfare, like these government programs. And it's crazy that he brings this up, because I did have a discussion. I think that our government is not supposed to be our savior. I think Jesus is our savior. I think our government's supposed to be used as a resource. But people also have to look at, because it's so easy to point out what's wrong and what's being done wrong, and like what need, like it's so easy to say this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, but it's like we have to acknowledge why that is options for people. Like, we're not looking at it as like solution based, we're just looking at we're looking at it as like kind of tunnel vision. So like that's why I always like try to see like both lenses of how it's being approached or how a problem is being solved, because he has a point 100%, but now we're back at square one. Like, okay, we see his point, what do we do at this point to maneuver like in a solution based approach? But yeah.
After there was a massive government effort on their behalf. The poverty rate among blacks, if you start in 1940 instead of 1960, because 1960 is the magic number for people who are saying the government, you see, did all these wonderful things and blacks advanced because of it. In 1940, the black poverty rate was 87%. By 1960, it was down to 47%.
That's dramatic.
But from 1960 to 1970, it went down to 30%. And in 1970, affirmative action was now in place. It went down to 29%. So in the 20 years prior to 1960s, the black poverty rate went down by 40 points, and in the 20 years after 1960, it went down by 18 points. But again, you have the same thing you had with what was the Ralph Nader effect. You see,
You started in 1960. You missed this.
So, you miss all of that.
So you've got in this book. This is a point you make again and again in the section on racial fallacies. That I started thinking of it. I don't think you use these terms, but this is not an original thought with me. I started thinking of it as a hidden century of black progress.
Yes.
From emancipation with the end of the Civil War through to 1965, let's say, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, 65, through the mid-60s, you've got a century, and you argue black educational attainment rises.
Yes.
Black poverty rate drops dramatically.
Yeah.
And these are people who started with no property, overwhelmingly illiterate. This is from the moment, the year zero in 1865 for African Americans. And they climb, and the other point that you make at a number of places is that the black family is overwhelmingly intact.
Yes.
Right up to 1960, most black, go ahead, explain that.
And not only do people take credit for things that were not their doing, they overlook the negative things that came in after the 1960s as a result of policy. In 1940, 17% of black children were raised in single-parent homes.
17%.
17. At the end, I forget the exact date in the 20th century, but after these wonderful reforms were put in, that quadrupled to 68% of black children were being raised in single-parent homes. Wow. Now, there's a whole literature on all the bad things that happen to kids who are raised by single parents, whether they are black or white, American or British. The studies show the same things. One study said that fatherlessness has a bigger effect than even race and poverty. And certainly I think back in my own life, I realized how fortunate I was, because even though my biological father died.
When he brings up fatherlessness, this goes back to the last video that I reacted to when Larry Elder was on Higher Learning. And I was the one that was, and I still stand by it, because Larry Elder did bring up fatherlessness as a problem. But when they asked him, like, what has he done to combat it? And I'm using this as an example only because, like, it just struck me, like, whenever he brought up fatherlessness, because I just did this video. When they asked him, what have you done or in the past to either combat it or to help the issue that you see as a deeming issue, he couldn't really answer it, and he pushed it back on Rachel. I'm going to put the clip right here of the video that y'all can go watch it. And that goes back to my main point prior to where we look at solution based. Like with him, it goes back to like the solution based of what I was saying previously, because Thomas Sowell, he's saying like what a problem is, but he's now talking about like the solution. He was saying like, because the government overextended their arm by providing extensive resources, now it led to so many broken homes, because in order to qualify for those resources, A, B, C needs to happen. So that's where like, and I'm only bringing this up because it just made me think of like the reaction, like I said before, about like the fatherlessness. So like it's like conversation like this, I like when people can back up what they're saying and provide solutions and provide, because I think we're at a point in time where we all know what problems are. We all know issues that everyday people are facing. But when it comes to like the solution basis, like that's where we get somewhere. That is where we move. That is where we progress. So actually hearing his solutions is what's like, okay, I like that.
Example that I think of a lot was a kid who grew up in Harlem at the same time I did. We were in the same school, lived 2 blocks from me, and we met many years later by accident on a street in San Francisco, and we talked about the old times. And one of the things he mentioned to me, that because he had gone on, he was making more money than I was, and he would become wealthy, and he lived overseas with servants, and he came back and moved out to the wine country and all that stuff. But one of the things that struck me, he said that he could remember times when he was growing up when his father would sit at the dinner table watching the children eat and not eat anything himself. Now, it's not, that's what.
And now the father isn't even there.
Yeah, that's right. So those kinds of things are what do it.
Right. Social justice fallacies. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 was a major factor in ending the denial of basic constitutional rights to blacks in the South. But there is no point trying to make that the main source of the black rise out of poverty, nor can the left act as if the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was solely their work. A higher percentage of Republicans than Democrats voted for the act, close quote. So
that's what people talk about today. They say like there was like a switch with Republicans and Democrats. Like that's why more black folks appease more to Democrats. I never really understood that argument, I'm not gonna lie. As a Democrat, I never really understood what people meant about switch. But just where we are as of today, I just always go based off of the notion of when people show you who they are, believe them. So like this concept of always, something that we see within the left is that we tend, and I say we because I used to be that person, we tend to overlook certain things, attributes, characteristics, policies that we don't really stand for because we think this is the best party for us. I'm being 100% transparent. Even still to this day, I'm still registered as a Democrat. Do I maneuver as a Democrat? Some may say no. Some may say yes. Some may say, like, I think I maneuver more independent than anything. At once I stopped putting my identity in my political party and started seeing things bigger than what they were, as far as like now looking at life like through tunnel vision lens, then that's whenever I started like acknowledging right from right, wrong from wrong, like what is right and what is wrong, and not just overlooking certain things because of my party. I feel like that's very much cultish. I think we see it on both sides of the aisle, to be honest. We see so many people who overlook a lot of stuff and stand for certain things even though they know within their morals and their principles and their values they don't truly believe in it. They do that because they feel like they have to, because of the shield of what their party stands for. And yeah, I'm just not that type of gal. I'm just not that type of person anymore. That's why when you get to the point in life where you're just like, bro, I see through both of y'all at this point. At this point, I just look at things as single issue policies. Like, ask me what I think something is, ask me my opinion on a topic, and I'll tell you. If it aligns more right, then it aligns more right. If it aligns more left, then it aligns more left. That's all to it. But I'm actually going to go ahead and stop it here because they are going into like another topic as well. But if you want a part 2, go ahead and comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. I think Mr. Thomas is really, really, really intelligent. Thomas Sowell, he's really intelligent. I feel like he's full of wisdom and full of knowledge. And like when he speaks, he's so captivating that you just have no choice but to sit and listen. But comment down below your thoughts and opinions. Make sure you follow me on my social media. Turn on post notifications so you're notified whenever I post a new video. Y'all, hashtag grow to 5K. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, this is Uduak, connecting people with policy. God bless y'all. I love y'all all. Deuces.